Sat Sri Akal and welcome to CJ Sidhu Show. As you know, every Thursday my show is live from 7 to 8 o'clock, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਹਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ ਆ, ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨਸ, ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਐਕਟਿਵਿਸਟ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਈ ਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਸੇ ਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਮੰਨੇ ਪ੍ਰਮੰਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਸਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ, ਗੋਰਡੀ ਹੋਗ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਹੋਣਾ ਆ। ਉਹਨੇ ਤਿੰਨੇ ਹੀ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੱਧਰ 'ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ ਐਜ਼ ਏ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਐਂਡ ਮੇਅਰ ਆਫ ਵਾਈਟ ਰੌਕ ਫॉर ਆਲਮੋਸਟ 20 years देयर। ਉਦੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ MLA ਐਂਡ ਕੈਬਨਿਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਫॉर ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਦ ਲਾਸਟ ਹੀ ਸਰਵਡ ਐਜ਼ ਏ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਆਫ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਫॉर ਸਾਊਥ ਸਰੀ ਵਾਈਟ ਰੌਕ। ਇਹਦੇ ਪੈਸੀਫਿਕ ਕਾਕਸ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਐਂਡ ਹੀ ਯੂਜ਼ ਟੂ ਗੋ ਬੈਕ ਆਟਵਾ ਐਂਡ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ about all MPs, how they are doing and what they are performing. So ਕਾਫੀ political ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ experience ਦੇ ਨਾਲ community organization, their list is so big. If I start talking about that, it will take half of the interview. So everybody knows Gordie is a community person, has served the community well, and welcome to CJ Sidhu Show, Gordie.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. ਸੋ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੁਛ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਗੋਰਡੀ ਵੀ ਅਪ ਟੂ ਸਪੀਡ ਹੈਗਾ। ਸੋ ਵੈਰੀ ਕੋਲਡ ਵੈਦਰ, ਬਹੁਤ ਠੰਡ ਆ। ਸੋ ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਯੂ ਬੰਡਲ ਅਪ, ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਯੂਰ ਟਾਇਰਸ ਹੈਵ ਅ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਟਰੈਡ, ਦੇ ਆਰ ਵਿੰਟਰ ਟਾਇਰਸ। ਕੋਈ ਰਿਸਕ ਲੈਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ, ਰਸ਼ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ, ਪ੍ਰੋਵਾਈਡ ਏ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਡਿਸਟੈਂਸ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪ ਦਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਅਤੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਹੀਕਲ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਠੰਡ। ਇਹ ਫਰੀਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਟੈਂਪਰੇਚਰ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਈਸੀ ਰੋਡਸ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ 'ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕਿੰਗ ਹੈ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਸਲਿੱਪਰੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਧ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਉਹਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਧਿਆਨ ਰੱਖਣਾ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਆ, ਇੰਪੀਚਮੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਹੈ ਡੋਨਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਲਈ ਐਂਡ ਇਟਸ ਗੋਨ ਟੂ ਏ ਸੈਨੇਟ ਨਾਓ ਐਂਡ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਵੀਡੈਂਸ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਵਿਲ ਬੀ ਵੈਰੀ ਇੰਟਰਸਟਿੰਗ ਇਫ ਦੇ ਵਿਲ ਬੀ ਅਲਾਊਡ ਗੋਰਡੀ ਟੂ ਹੈਵ ਮੋਰ evidence and if the Senate allows, then they can add more.
They're calling witnesses and see how many witnesses they'll let come in. The Senate seems pretty decided in terms of where they're going, so that there's some hope that there will be a chance to run it a bit like a court case would be run. So you hear both positives and negatives and the prosecution and defense being heard.
Yeah, and it will probably drag for weeks, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Senate wants to move it as quickly as they can, so they're hoping to get through it within a week or a week and a half. And if the Democrats, which are bringing forward all of things, they want to be able to call witnesses, and they don't have control over that. So we'll just see where that goes. And
President Trump still thinks it's a hoax.
Still thinks it's a hoax, yeah.
It's a fake news.
It's all fake news, yeah. One of the things that has always intrigued me more when I became in party politics was that people don't seem to listen to information or evidence or research, that people seem to be able to just take it and take the information and then interpret it based on what they already believe. So they use what's called confirmation bias or motivated reasoning to take things, so we don't know how people know what they know.
Yes, exactly. And there is a lot to the information. It will be interesting to see how the witnesses will come forward. And like Love Pranas, he spoke on a CNN, MSNBC, and according to him, everything happened, whatever the Congress has tried to impeach him. And there are a lot more people involved than it was initially thought.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I went back to Simon Fraser University to take a doctorate was because I was concerned that if people did listen to evidence and research, if you believed in gun control and I didn't, then if we brought experts in, we should get closer together as we analyze the information. But what happens is we tend to get further apart. So that happens in political parties. That's what we're seeing in the U.S. between the Democrats and the Republicans, and we certainly see that to some degree in Canada. I don't think it's as exaggerated here in Canada. There's a little more openness to looking at other ideas than there seems to be in the American structure, but still that notion of information being interpreted and people, It's just like if you were a fan of the Vancouver Canucks and somebody else was a fan of the
Calgary Flames.
then there can be no rational discussion between them because they know they're right. And that same thing seems to become ingrained in our political processes.
ਸੋ ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ PhD ਹੈ ਇਸੇ ਸਬਜੈਕਟ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਪਲੀਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਟੂ ਸੀ ਹਾਊ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੀਪਲ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਪਰਸੀਵ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਦੋ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਰਿਪਬਲਿਕਨਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਆਪਦਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਊ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੈਟਸ ਦਾ ਆਪਦਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਊ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਵਜੂਦ legality and ਜਿਹੜੇ facts ਹੈਗੇ ਆ they have to come through what happened is according to your thesis and your PhD what do you think is it happens or sometimes it's not possible?
Well, I think that one of the there's a psychologist by the name of Jonathan Haidt who's studied this historical development of humankind and said if you go way back to recorded history and perhaps beyond recorded history, people have always formed into groups, and as soon as they form into groups, they oppose other groups to sort of protect in those days, probably protecting their access to food and the competition that had to go. But as soon as they oppose other groups, they blind themselves to the truth.
Yes.
So there's that whole process going on. So I think that before people sort of become willing to listen to information or evidence or research, there has to be some visceral emotive connection. So
and have to be a fine balance.
There has to be a balance. But if there's something that you and I disagree on, whether it's say it's gun control, before we'll sort of be willing to listen to each other, I think we're going to have to understand what you see as your mission in life. What are your values and what are my values? And once we connect those with sort of the cultural values, whether the cultural values are a political party or whether it's a Rotary Club or whatever it might be, then there can start to be some information sharing and some connectedness. I think every good car salesperson knows they have to sell themselves before they sell the car.
Yes.
But I don't think politicians understand that as well, nor do a lot of people in discussions and debates understand that.
ਸੋ ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪੋਜ਼ਿਟ ਵਿਊਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੈਸਟਡ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਆਪਦਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਊ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੱਚਾਈ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫੈਕਟਸ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਮੈਟਰ ਹੋਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਆ ਬਟ ਐਂਡ ਆਫ ਦ ਡੇ ਵੈਨ ਥੀਸ ਕਾਈਂਡ ਆਫ processes go through and people have their sides, clear sides they're taken, but there is a facts that have to be vetted facts that this is, if it's a evening now, it's a evening, nobody can deny that. And then there is a reality of things, and then there is a compelling arguments either for or against. Where the balance?
Well, people are not amenable to facts. I mean, they interpret them in many different ways, and that becomes the problem. So you can put a fact in front of them, and two groups of people, and they'll interpret it differently. They'll interpret it in terms of how they already see it. Well, I think it was Gandhi that said, "Let me first be the change I wish to see in others," and I think that's one of the things that one needs to do in the political context. One of my favorite philosophers is John Stuart Mill, and John Stuart Mill said, "You may understand your position and be able to defend it extremely well, but unless you've taken the time to understand the other positions as well, then you haven't got the information necessary to make a choice, to make a decision between them." And I think that's one of the things that if we were all a little better at listening to the other person's perspective, trying to be the change we wish to see, then I think that would help us all in terms of being able to participate and live in a communal way in a society where we do get along.
So Gordie ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਊ ਹੈ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਵਿਊ ਹੋਵੇ ਰਿਲੀਜੀਅਸ ਵਿਊ ਹੋਵੇ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਵਿਊ ਹੋਵੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਆ ਪਰ ਦੂਸਰਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਊ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਹਾਫ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਬੇਸਿਸ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਡਿਸੀਜਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਦੂਜਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਊ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੂਲ ਆਊਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ So basically, let's switch a little bit of gear. Let's talk about the last federal election. So even you lost the election. Liberal Party have a minority government able to pull it off. And what is the federal political landscape is now?
Well, I think certainly the Liberals lost seats, the Conservatives gained seats. The Liberals didn't get anything in Alberta or Saskatchewan.
Yes.
And I think that was a statement in itself. The Conservatives did not do as well in central Canada, in Quebec and Ontario, where they needed to do well. To form government, you have to do well there. And I think that balance didn't work out. So in terms of what happened, I think that there was certainly on the doorstep, so as we were knocking here, and I've met with a number of other MPs after the election, and they were saying there was a lot of concern expressed with respect to the SNC-Lavalin. And certainly if you look at the polling, the Liberals were doing very well until the SNC-Lavalin issue came up, and how that was all handled, and the perception that people had around that, the way they started to look at the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister didn't have the same height in terms of the policies and in terms of where he was in the polling. So we saw a change in that polling. And when you look at politics, depending upon how you want to see it, years ago, before television and social media, the local politician was all important because you got to see them and they did what was called stump speech, and that was your contact. With the 50s and 60s coming into play, then we had 6 o'clock news, and most people got their information on the 6 o'clock television news, and that was usually the leader of the party. So that became the focus and the leader of the party. And now with social media, much of that is happening again. But the other thing that concerns me is with social media, you can say almost anything you want.
Yeah.
And we've always known there were people on the periphery, but they were sort of isolated. Now they have connections because they can connect with other people who believe what they believe. And so we get these people who are sort of the outliers, and but they can connect all across the world. So we're seeing that negative part of populism that's coming into politics. In fact, there was an advertisement that came out at one point during the election that said a vote for me was a vote for ISIS.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't know how. So all those things can happen. So we can't set laws against that, but I think we can open up and make sure that people are aware that we shine light on what's going on so that they can be aware of those issues.
ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਓਵਰ ਡੂਇੰਗ ਫਾਈਨ, ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ SNC ਲਾਵਲਨ ਵਾਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੇਸ ਆਇਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੋਲਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਸ 'ਚ ਨੰਬਰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਡਾਊਨ ਚਲੇ ਗਏ ਲਿਬਰਲਸ ਦੇ। ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ 'ਚ ਸੀਟਸ ਲੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਸਸੈਕਚੁਅਨਸ ਟੋਟਲੀ ਨਾਟ ਅ ਸਿੰਗਲ ਸੀਟ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵਸ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੈਂਟਰਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੈਕ ਈਸਟ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ, ਕੁਬੈਕ, ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ, ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੀਟਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ, ਤਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਫਾਰਮ ਕਰ ਸਕੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਖਬਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ TV ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਕਟਲੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਣਾ, ਫਿਰ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ TV ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਆਇਆ, ਉਸ 'ਤੇ ਡਿਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗੇ। ਹੁਣ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਆ ਗਿਆ, ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਇਨ ਏ ਸਪਲਿਟ ਸੈਕਿੰਡ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ 'ਚ ਚਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਉਸ 'ਤੇ ਕੁਛ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਉਹ ਪਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਵੈਰੀਫਾਈ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ, ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟਸ ਵੈਰੀ ਡੇਂਜਰਸ ਵਿਦ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ 'ਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਗੋਰਡੀ ਹੋਗ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਸਾਊਥ ਸਰੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਾਈਟ ਰੌਕ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਆਫ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਸੀ ਵੀ ISIS ਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਦੇਰ ਇਜ਼ ਨੋ ਵੈਲੀਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਔਰ ਐਨੀ ਸੈਂਸ ਵਟਸੋਐਵਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਿਹਾਈਂਡ, ਪਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਹੁਣ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਨੂੰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਵਾਬ ਦੇਵੇ। So talking about the social media, and there is a lot more talk about foreign governments' interference. There's a lot going on in America. We saw that with Putin and Russia's involvement, the emails, the crooked Hillary, and those kind of very unprofessional kind of unfounded comments and remarks made by certain people. So, and then there is a lot of talk comes about China's involvement. So how much now, talking about social media and the foreign governments play a role in these democracies and these elections?
Well, we don't know for sure, but we certainly that's part of what this whole process is about, going on with the impeachment of Trump is sort of looking at that. But also just with this social media, you have to understand that there's a small swing, of about 700 or 800 voters in a lot of the elections in British Columbia and indeed across Canada. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
So if 700 people or 300 people in families believe that a vote for somebody is a vote for ISIS, then that kind of swing will swing the election. So it's a very small amount that can actually affect the difference in an election. So it's not like you have to get 30% of the voters or anything happening, but it's just that small bit of tweaking. So being able to run an advertisement on YouTube, which they ran an advertisement in the by-election in YouTube and had over 10,000 hits on that. So 10,000 hits, if a third of them believe it, then you can swing an election just on that if it's a tight area. So that's a significant thing. And if depending upon what statistics you want to believe and what polling you want to believe, about 46% of people think government's going negatively. About 65% of people think that government is they're feeling less connected to government, less connected to the power structures that exist. So I think one of the responsibilities that we have as citizens, that citizens of our country have, and indeed probably citizens of every country, particularly democracies, they've got a responsibility to try and find out what fits for them, to understand the world as they see it, and to check out for themselves, not just to believe something they read on the internet or else, but we all have a set of values. We all have a way that we know what we know. And I think we all have to examine that and say, what do we think is in the best interest of our community, of my family, of our community, of our province? We are, in my belief, we're very fortunate to live in Canada. We're very fortunate to be able to make these decisions. But decisions happen, change happens incrementally, and it happens slowly. But it only happens if we get engaged and make a difference and inform our politicians and push our politicians and hold them accountable for those things that are important to us.
ਸੋ ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਤੇ ਬਾਹਰਲੀਆਂ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਰੋਲ, ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਐਜ਼ ਏ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ, ਇਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਕਰੈਕਟ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਉਸ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਹੋਮਵਰਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੈਨ ਵੀ ਡਿਸਾਈਡ ਦੈਟ ਵੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਹੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਗਲਤ ਹੈ। ਬਾਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੋਲਸ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਰਸੈਂਟੇਜ ਵਾਈਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਰਕ ਹੈ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ $800,000 ਦਾ ਸੌਰੀ 1000 ਵੋਟਾਂ ਦਾ ਫਰਕ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਈ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗਸ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਡਿਸਾਈਡ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ। ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹੇ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਰਗੇ ਕੰਟਰੀ 'ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸੋ ਆਪਣਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਰੋਲ ਬਣਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਰਿਊਮਰ ਮਿਲਸ ਜਾਂ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਜਾਂ ਗਲਤ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਅਫਵਾਹਾਂ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਆਪੇ ਡਿਸੀਜ਼ਨ ਨਾ ਬਣਾਈਏ, ਬਲਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪ ਦਾ ਹੋਮਵਰਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪ ਦਾ ਡਿਸੀਜ਼ਨ ਬਣਾਈਏ। Let's switch a gear a little bit. So what is for Gordie after a political life? You live a long, like 42 years as an elected official. That's a long time. It's a lifetime serving a public and your communities. And I admire you and commend you for doing such an amazing job for the communities. But what is now for you after politics?
Well, firstly, I feel very blessed for the opportunities I've had in our community and the confidence that the people of our community have shown in me. And it's been a remarkable experience for me. I've learned all the time. And I continue to learn and continue to be engaged in the community. I grew up, I was coaching Little League when I was going to high school and through university. I've been on something like 16 different boards of nonprofit societies engaged in, and I'm not going to change. That's part of my passion is contributing to
That's your DNA.
Well, that's certainly that we learned that from our family. My father was one of the first physicians. Part of the hospital's named after him. There's a park named after Dad, the park in the area that our family home was on, and we grew up and we saw him going out on house calls in the evenings and often going with him. So we've had perhaps it is part of the DNA in that sense. Our mother was also very involved. She was a nurse, and it just seemed that that's what we should do. And I've come to believe that we have a responsibility to our community. We've got a responsibility to give back, to be engaged, to not be overly negative, but but also to want change, to say what that change is, to speak up about change, and to continue to be engaged in meaningful and positive ways. And I think that's one of the important things that we need to hold on to our democracy. We've seen democracies around the world disappear because people said, "Oh, we'll take." Some people, Hitler for one, said, "Just elect me for life. I'll take care of things for you." And look what happened with that. So we have to be engaged. We have to be accountable. We have to hold people accountable, and we have to make those incremental changes. We have to have a sense of how can it be better, what can be better, and what can we do about that. And I think that's one of the things that I want to be a part of, and want to be a part of as long as I'm on this earth. I want to give and move and push and present and challenge. And I have had many people who've challenged me over the years, and I'm very thankful for that, and being able to see things from different perspectives and hopefully make our community and our province and our city and our country a better place. And if we all do that, I think it will be.
ਸੋ ਗੋਡੀ ਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਿਛਲਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਹਾਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੁਣ ਰੋਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਕੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ। ਇਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਆਲਵੇਜ਼ ਇਨਵੋਲਵਡ ਇਨ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ 42 years ਐਜ਼ ਇਲੈਕਟਡ ਆਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ, ਦੈਟਸ ਅ ਲੌਂਗ ਟਾਈਮ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ 15-16 ਬੋਰਡਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਸਰਵ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਆਲਵੇਜ਼। ਐਂਡ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਕੰਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਆ। ਮੇਰੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ, ਮਦਰ, ਫਾਦਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਰਵ ਕੀਤਾ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਹੌਸਪੀਟਲ, ਪਾਰਕ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਦਾ DNA ਹੈ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਯੈਸ, ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟਸ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਦੈਟ ਜਰਨੀ। ਪਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੋਜ਼ੀਟਿਵ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ, ਪੋਜ਼ੀਟਿਵ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਲਿਆਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਆਲਵੇਜ਼ ਚੈਲੰਜ ਯੂ, ਬੀ ਚੈਲੰਜਡ। ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਹਰਜ ਨਹੀਂ। ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਚੈਲੰਜ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਰਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਸਿੱਖਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ। ਸੋ ਜਸਟ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ, ਬੀ ਪੋਜ਼ੀਟਿਵ, ਐਂਡ ਉਹ ਜਰਨੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਫੋਨ ਲਾਈਨਸ ਓਪਨ ਹੈ। ਯੂ ਹੈਵ ਐਨੀ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ। Gordie have a vast knowledge about all the different topics. That next topic we will start. You can ask Gordie any question. So our phone lines are open. Our numbers are running on the screen. We will appreciate your call. So Gordie, you did a PhD and you're very passionate about policies. And then let's talk about a little bit about Canadian fabric of people coming here, immigrants and all walks of life. It's a country of immigrants, by the way, except for the indigenous people that and that original, And so there is a rights being a citizen of Canada, but there is a responsibilities as well. And I think there is no better person to explain that than you.
Well, I think firstly, in the framework of that we are blessed that we are a country that has so many different people from so many different backgrounds and so many different cultures, and I think that's the real strength of our country. And we've talked about I've proudly talked about being multicultural and pluralistic as a country, but I think that's wrong, and I've had 3 conversations with the Prime Minister about this. Multiculturalism, when we talk about that, talks about differences. And I think we should be talking about how common we are. I think we should be saying that wherever you go in the world, wherever country you go to, most people care about the same things.
Yes.
They care about family, they care about community, they care about getting ahead, whether it's emotionally or spiritually or economically. And that's common across the whole world. And I think we should be saying, isn't it wonderful that in Canada, that we can celebrate that sameness that exists all over the world from different beliefs, different cultures, different religions, different ways of understanding. But I think if we talk about the commonness of humankind rather than multicultural nature, I think that's much more important. Multiculturalism talks about differences. Sometimes the media will talk about a particular culture and there's a terrorist act and attached to it. Every culture has the possibility of terrorism and has had terrorism. So we shouldn't be identifying. We should be talking about humankind and celebrating that sameness in Canada. It is my belief that we should be doing that. And we should be taking responsibility for that. Democracy means government of the people, government by the people. And that doesn't mean we say there's elected people over there are responsible for it. We're responsible, each one of us. And we have to collectively be responsible and put forward that majority. And there's been constant discussion as to whether or not we should have a different form of democracy, whether we should have total representation or should we have a different model of proportional representation. And certainly those are wonderful debates and wonderful discussions. And we should be a part of that discussion. We should be creating the democracy that works best for us.
ਸੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰਾਈਟਸ ਐਂਡ ਰਿਸਪੌਂਸਿਬਿਲਟੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਬਿਊਟੀਫੁਲ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਾਇਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਮਲਟੀਕਲਚਰਿਜ਼ਮ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਮਤਲਬ ਵੈਲ ਸੈਲੀਬ੍ਰੇਟਡ ਹੇਅਰ ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਤੋਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਉੱਪਰ ਉੱਠ ਕੇ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਓ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਸਿਮਿਲਰ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਈਦਰ ਇਟਸ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਔਰ ਰੇਸ ਔਰ whatever it is. Everybody celebrates in the same way, everybody cries for the same reason. So ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਢਾਂਚਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਸੇਮ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਢਾਂਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਰਾਬਰਤਾ ਦਾ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਸੈਲੀਬ੍ਰੇਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਇਸ ਬਾਈ ਦ ਪੀਪਲ ਫੋਰ ਦ ਪੀਪਲ ਲੋਕੀ ਸਿਲੈਕਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਲੈਕਟ ਕੀਤੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਕਰਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਰਵ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ So having said that, let's talk about, people come here, they go through the steps, either, work permit and they get a permanent residency. Then after 3 years, they can apply for citizenship. They go through the hoops, work hard, pay their taxes, being a good citizens. And then with your research and your dissertation and work you did in this area, tell our viewers what are those bullet points that we should all be aware of to make it even better place to live.
Well, firstly, it's pretty. I've been to a number of citizenship celebrations, swearing in of citizenships, and it's very emotional to those of us who've lived here all our life. I think in some ways take so much for granted, but when we talk to people who've come here to find a new life for themselves, for their family, to be a part of Canada, and to hear them tell their stories. It is pretty heartwarming to hear that and to understand that. And I think that in some ways, those of us who've lived here our whole lives take a lot of that for granted.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that new Canadians can help us do. We can help us remember what the rest of the world is like. They can help us to do that. And I think that's an important role to be a part of, to see that. And I was so proud when the government of Canada decided to take the Syrian refugees and what was going.
Yes.
And over 60% of them were taken in by Canadians. It wasn't government. It was Canadian citizens, people living here. A lot of the new Canadians who'd been here and saw what they had and wanted to share that. And I think that's so important. And we need to have more immigrants. I think at last some of the statistics I saw that right now for every person who's retired, there are about 5 people working.
Yes.
If we don't have immigration, then within about 20 years, with no immigration, we don't have enough births in our country to compensate.
Yes.
So we'll be in very destitute situations. So we need immigrants, and immigrants want to come here. It's a valued country, and so we've got to make that balance and that growth in a way that's meaningful. And I think that when you listen to those new Canadians, they're so proud and pleased to be here. And there are things that they want to do. We've seen some enclaves. Sometimes naturally you're going to want to be with people that are from the country you came from.
Yes.
You'll have the language and the shared mores and values. But underneath that, there's a bigger set of values that represent what it is to be a part of a country. So in response to your question, I hope that new Canadians will look at the values of Canada, why they came here, and actually understand that our values are the same. And let's connect with each other. I think if you're whatever country you come from, whether you come from Scotland or India or China, you've got some of those same values. So let's connect with each other. I had the privilege this past summer of having about 14 young Chinese students volunteering in my office and working with. And they were spectacular in their contributions they made, and they were so excited to be part of Canada and so wanted to do things. They were out volunteering in the community, and we gave them little certificates that helped them in terms of the work they were doing, showing their engagement. But so when I talked with those young people, I have great optimism for where our country's going and all of the new immigrants that are making contributions to make our country a better place. But it's, don't accept things just the way they are. Understand if you see things that can make our country better, then we've got to do that. And you've got to contribute. All of us have to contribute. Don't become a Canadian and sit back. Become a Canadian and make us all better, because you can do that. We can all learn from each other. And every culture has something that can teach us. And we are that place. We're not the melting pot like the United States. Yes. We're the salad bowl. Well, you can come and hold on to your culture, but overlap with us. Help us learn. Make us better. You can do that, and we want to listen. We want to listen and we want to learn.
ਸੋ ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਸੈਰੇਮਨੀਜ਼ ਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਇਹ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਇਮੋਸ਼ਨਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਇਸ 'ਚ ਕੰਟਰੀਬਿਊਟ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਆ, ਪਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਰ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਆਪਦੇ ਸਰਕਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਫਰਟੇਬਲ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ, ਕੋਈ ਸੇਮ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ, ਸੇਮ ਫੂਡ, ਸੇਮ ਕਲਰ। ਪਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਿਗਰ ਪਿਕਚਰ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਆਏ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਿਗਰ ਪਿਕਚਰ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਟਰੀਬਿਊਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਕੰਟਰੀਬਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਨੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਬੈਟਰ ਬਣਨਾ ਆ। ਇੱਥੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਲੋੜ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਿਆਣਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਰਿਟਾਇਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਪਿੱਛੇ 5 ਬੰਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਜੇ ਬਰਥ ਰੇਟ ਲੋ ਹੈ ਐਂਡ ਰਿਟਾਇਰਿੰਗ ਰੇਟ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਫਿਲ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ। ਬਟ ਵੀ ਹੈਵ ਟੂ ਬਿਕਮ ਏ ਬੈਟਰ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ। ਅਸੀਂ 5 ਮਿੰਟ ਦਾ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਪਰਤ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਸੇ ਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਗੋਡੀ ਹੋਗ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ, ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਐਕਟਿਵਿਸਟ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਰਹੋ। ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਸਟੇ ਟਿਊਨਡ ਐਂਡ ਵੀ ਵਿਲ ਬੀ ਬੈਕ ਇਨ 5 ਮਿੰਟਸ। ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਐਂਡ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਬੈਕ ਟੂ CJ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਸ਼ੋ। ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਗੋਡੀ ਹੋਗ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਐਂਡ ਮੇਅਰ ਆਫ ਵਾਈਟ ਰੌਕ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ MLA ਐਂਡ ਕੈਬਨਿਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ, ਅਤੇ ਰੀਸੈਂਟਲੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਾਸਟ ਐਜ਼ ਏ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਆਫ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਸਾਊਥ ਸਰੀ ਵਾਈਟ ਰੌਕ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਾਫੀ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੀ ਫੋਨ ਲਾਈਨਸ ਓਪਨ ਹੈ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੁੱਛ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਫੀਲ ਫਰੀ ਟੂ ਆਸਕ ਹਿਮ ਐਨੀ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਸ। ਹੀ ਹੈਵ ਅ ਵੈਰੀ ਵਾਈਡ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਆਫ ਦੀਜ਼ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਡੀਲ ਡੇ ਟੂ ਡੇ ਬੇਸਿਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਗੋਰਡਨ, ਲੈਟਸ ਟਾਕ ਅਬਾਊਟ the crime and drugs and gangs issue. You were off, when we were offline, you were mentioning some stats. Share with our viewers, please.
Well, firstly, I started out as a youth probation officer working in Surrey, and I was became responsible for all of the youth probation in Surrey, and then I became warden of our largest youth jail. For 10 years I was doing that as well. And so I've been looking again at the youth gang issues, and certainly today Abbotsford has the highest rate of youth gang crime and of murders and on a per capita basis in Canada.
Wow.
In Surrey, we have a unique gang factor. When you look at study gangs around the world, whether it's Chicago or Glasgow or Los Angeles, that the gang members tend to come from poorer families. In Surrey, 40% of the youth on probation are South Asian, and they come from families that are quite well off.
ਸੋ ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਯੂਥ, ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ, ਯੂਥ ਅਤੇ ਗੈਂਗਸ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਐਜ਼ ਏ ਵਾਰਡਨ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਰ ਕੈਪੀਟਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਸਰੀ, ਅਤੇ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ 40% ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੈਂਗ ਰਿਲੇਟਡ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨਸ ਹੈ, ਮਤਲਬ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਆ। ਪਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਫਰਕ ਉਹਦਾ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ਿਕਾਗੋ ਜਾਂ LA ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਪੂਅਰ ਫੈਮਲੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਆ। ਪਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਾਇਨਾਮਿਕਸ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੰਫਰਟੇਬਲ ਫੈਮਲੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ, ਵੈਲ ਆਫ ਫੈਮਲੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਹੈ। ਸੋ you feel that Chicago or Los Angeles and those cities there is a crime with a low income group, but in Surrey area you find that people came from a very comfortable families and lifestyle.
Yeah, the majority of them
Majority of them.
do that. So that's a dynamic which is unique. Now, I've met with the leaders of the Gurdwaras, and certainly the Gurdwaras are, for the South Asian communities, tend to be a community center, a place to worship, a place where you get food, you can be engaged and support. And the leaders of the Gurdwaras are aware of this, and they wanted to be able to do something about it, about trying to contribute to the ways that this happens. Now, I met with a parent whose son he knew was getting into gang activity, and he and his wife were disagreeing about it. So finally, the father became so scared that his son was going to be murdered once you get into the gang activity, and it was happening, that the father charged his own son. And so the wife was very upset and left him, and this son ended up going to jail. But when he came back out of jail, he said to his father, "Thank you, Dad, you saved my life." So there's some tough decisions that have to be made within that framework when you're looking at those types of dynamics. How can you support? How can you ensure? I know other parents who've sent their children back to India.
Yes.
In an effort to protect them. So, and these are all caring families, and they're families that have come here, and both parents often working to support the family, and a lot of them tell me that in India they had the grandparents were there to help the family structure and helping to grow. So we need to help provide support for those families to look at and find ways to engage positively. So when you look at gang activity or look at crime, you first look at prevention, and then you look at intervention, and then you look at disruption, and finally enforcement. So there's sort of 4 stages to getting involved in gang activity. So how do we ensure that that information is conveyed meaningfully to citizens, from all cultures, and that they're able to actively do that? Because most of them do not want their youth, their families in that crime.
Yes.
They want to have some answers. And so we've got to help them find those answers and work with them.
ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਮੋਸਟਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉੱਥੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਲੰਗਰ ਖਾਈਦਾ ਆਪਸ 'ਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਾਹ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਉਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ 'ਚ ਕੰਸਰਨਡ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਪੇਰੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਆਪਦੇ ਬੇਟੇ ਨੂੰ ਚਾਰਜ ਕੀਤਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਵਾਈਫ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਬੜਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਮਨਾਇਆ, ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ ਕੱਟ ਕੇ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਇਆ ਉਹਨੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਆਪਦੇ ਫਾਦਰ ਦਾ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨੇ ਆਪਦੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰ ਲਈ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਐਕਟਿਵਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਹੋਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਆ। ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਯੂ ਟੋਲਡ ਗੋਡੀ 4 steps. So first one is a prevention. So the prevention part, let's touch upon all these issues. Okay. So prevention is a law enforcement agencies.
No. Prevention is as your children are growing up, how do you get them involved in active activities? So maybe it's a sports program or a club scouts or a program
after school.
So they just get involved in positive activities that they do a good turn. If you're a Boy Scout, you're doing a good turn. You're learning how to become a citizen, to be engaged with people, to get along with people in that type of positive peer structure. So that's what, and majority of the funding that has gone to Surrey is looking at prevention programs out there.
So let me touch upon each point. So ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ prevention ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਐਕਟੀਵਿਟੀਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਗੇਮਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਆਫਟਰ ਸਕੂਲ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿਡਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, rather than getting into a bad crowd, they have enough space there so they can involve in sports and activities and scouts and those kind of things. So ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ prevention part ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ proactive ਹੋ ਕੇ involve ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ।
And the second step is intervention. So you're starting to be concerned about your child, or the police are starting to see them on the street. They haven't committed an offense yet, perhaps, or haven't been caught. And so you're wanting to now provide some support to them. You're starting to identify some people and say, how can we help you move on? How can we help you move into a more positive structures? What are the things we can involve you in? And sometimes that's an active sports group. When I was the warden of the Youth Detention Center, I started a program called Night Hoops. because we found that in those days, about 90% of offenses were happening late at night, Friday and Saturday nights. So we had the NBA team, the Grizzlies were in town, they gave us 30 seasons tickets, and we would give tickets to some of these kids. And my favorite story is one of the kids came to me and said, "Hey, Gord, I need 4 tickets for the game Saturday night." I said, "Oh, what's that for?" He said, "I'm going to take the police officer that arrested me, his wife, and his kid, and I'm going to be in charge that night." And so those types of interventions are where you can have something positive growing out of it, are really positive ways of being able to get people sort of coming back into more mainstream.
ਸੋ ਦੂਸਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਪ੍ਰੀਵੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਐਂਡ ਸੈਕੰਡ ਵਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੰਟਰਵੈਂਸ਼ਨ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਿੰਪਟਮਸ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਚ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਗਨਲ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ ਉਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਐਕਟਿਵਲੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੈਂਡਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ? ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟਸ अर्ਲੀ ਔਨ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਗੁੱਡ ਸਟੇਜ ਟੂ ਕੈਚ ਦਮ ਦੇਅਰ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 30 ਟਿਕਟਸ ਮਿਲਦੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਜ਼ਲੀਜ਼ ਦੀਆਂ, ਐਂਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਫਰਾਈਡੇ ਤੇ ਸੈਟਰਡੇ ਈਵਨਿੰਗ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਪੁੱਠੇ ਪੰਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਸ਼ਰਾਰਤਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਸੋ ਉਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਟਿਕਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਗੇਮ 'ਚ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਣਾ। ਅਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਯੰਗ ਕਿਡ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੈਡ ਕਰਾਊਡ ਸੀਗਾ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ 4 ਟਿਕਟਾਂ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ। ਅਤੇ ਗੋਲਡੀ ਨੇ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ 4 ਟਿਕਟਾਂ ਕਾਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ? ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਮੇਰੇ ਲਈ, ਇੱਕ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫਿਸਰ ਲਈ, ਇੱਕ ਉਹਦੀ ਵਾਈਫ ਲਈ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਲਈ। ਸੋ ਜਸਟ ਟੂ ਥੈਂਕ them, I guess, to taking those 4 tickets and taking a police officer.
Taking a police officer, and again, a positive. It's not often that a youth is sort of in the edge of the law, is actually going with a police officer and taking them to a game. So that type of relationship is sort of how do you move that along?
And the third one?
Third one is disruption.
Disruption.
So basically, how do you get and disrupt what you see is happening? So the police, in concert probably with school counselors, there are about 10 of those youth in Surrey who are on probation who've been kicked out of school. They're not allowed to go to the school. And so the probation officers won't even meet them in their office because they're that high risk. They'll only meet them at the RCMP station. So there's 10 of those kids in Surrey that are there. So how do you disrupt that? How do you get engaged in that and show them what the consequences are, but show them more positively, because none of them believe they're going to get caught. So if you say this is your consequence is you're going to go to jail, that doesn't matter, because they believe they're not going to get caught. And it's so important to them because they're now in a structure, if they're in gang activity, where the gangs control them. And we've seen some people get hurt badly.
Yeah. So ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਥਰਡ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਡਿਸਰਪਸ਼ਨ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਹੱਥ 'ਚੋਂ ਨਿਕਲ ਗਏ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੀਰੀਅਸ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਚੱਲ ਗਿਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਫਿਰ ਲਾਅ ਇਨਫੋਰਸਮੈਂਟ ਏਜੰਸੀਜ਼ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਟੈਕਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੈਂਗਸ ਜੇ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕੱਢਣਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਟੈਪ ਹੈ ਡਿਸਰਪਸ਼ਨ। ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਇਨ that stage, I think on every step the whole community involvement is needed anyways. All the volunteer organizations, and I think all plays a role.
Yeah, and parents don't want to believe their children are involved in this, and they don't want to turn them in and don't want to have them get the kids be mad at their parents. But in many cases, that's the thing to do to actually protect them. So the fourth step is enforcement. It's enforcement of the law. So it is ensuring that people get charged, they face the full weight of the law, but within that there are also resources that will be made available to them depending upon whatever their needs are, to whatever the challenges they have, to be able to get them into a more positive role. So this again goes back to where we started with the whole role of citizenship. How do we become responsible? How do we contribute? How do we be engaged? And in some ways these are youth who are taking a negative pattern. Some of them and we want them to get onto a positive path. So many of them age out of it. So most of the crime that you see happens probably, and it used to happen at sort of age 14. We're seeing some kids younger than that. And if you look at the people who end up in jail, in the mid-20s to late 20s, the percentages, it drops right off. So that's the age group where we want to be able to follow those 4 stages. And the prevention you want to have happen as early as possible.
Yes.
And then you want to be able to work with them and find ways. But in some ways we're having some successes, but there are some challenges, And we really need to take this on as a community and take responsibility for it as citizens of a democracy, that we want to make our communities better places. We want to make our country better places.
So the fourth step is enforcement. ਜਦੋਂ already ਪਾਣੀ ਪੁਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੋਂ ਦੀ ਟੱਪ ਗਿਆ and they already into a crime and all those kind of things, then the enforcement, and then ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ enforcement ਵੀ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਜੇ too strict ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਵੀ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਵਜੂਦ ਵੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਐਜੂਕੇਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ, ਉਸ ਲਾਈਫ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ। ਸੋ 4 ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਟੈਪ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਪ੍ਰੀਵੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, ਉਹ ਇੰਟਰਵੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗਾ। ਪ੍ਰੀਵੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਵੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਗ੍ਰੇਡਸ ਡ੍ਰੌਪ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਉਹ ਗੁੱਡ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹਦਾ ਬਿਹੇਵੀਅਰ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋਇਆ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੇ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਅੱਖ ਰੱਖਣੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਲਾਈਕ ਯੂ ਸੈਡ ਵੀ ਹੈਵ ਅਬਾਊਟ 5 minutes. So like you said, it makes perfect sense that on a citizenship, when people come here, immigrants, I came as an immigrant, and I have my story, and I struggled like any being a lecturer in a college. They call it a professor, and I worked as a laborer. And when I look back, it was difficult, but I never mind that, because I went to school full time, Gordie, and took a loan to go to a school, being a married and I have a child. So these are the steps. It built a character, and you keep on contributing, and you send the same messaging, like you said, to the community. When you go and when I talk and we talk today on my TV show, these are the positive messaging, that it doesn't start at the end part. It starts early on.
And it's not just understanding those values, it's living those values.
Yes.
It's living those values. And so often in politics, people vote based on what a platform is or what a policy is. And I think that when I'm looking at who I want to vote for, I want to find somebody whose values are reflected, and those values are part of the policies. So often it seems that policies are disconnected from the life and the connection of what that person is. So I want to vote for a party and for a person that reflects those values. And the other thing that I think is challenging for politicians is that I don't think politicians often get close enough to an issue, to a visceral issue. If the issue, for instance, is gangs, how do politicians get close enough to know what those parents are feeling, what those kids are experiencing, nor far enough away from it to see the patterns that allow you to inform policy and legislation? And I think too often politicians get stuck somewhere in that middle. So you're not experiencing it emotionally, and you're not understanding the patterns, but you're sort of bouncing back and forth. And I think that those politicians who get close enough and then can see can have a visceral, emotional connectedness with what's going on, and then far enough away they can see the patterns. I think those are, for me, the people I want to vote for, the people who are able to reflect that in a holistic and meaningful way, and they're able to live the values that they're talking about.
ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਰਾਜਨੀਤੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ, ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਇਹੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਦੇਖੋ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪਰਸਨੈਲਿਟੀ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਚ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ ਸਮਟਾਈਮਸ I think when we talk about policies, and people caught up or start thinking that it's too technical. But that's either the politician or a public community people have to make it easy and express in a way that everybody can understand that.
Yeah, it has to be said in a simple way. And I think telling stories is a good way. If you don't talk abstractly about what's going on, but talk about a story. So when we talk about getting close enough, that there are ways that you can get close to understanding it. I mean, to be a parent, you want to get close enough to your child to know what they're thinking, know what they're doing, what they're engaged in, and then you want to be able to be well enough informed by yourself to be able to know how to respond to that. Well, politicians need to do the same thing, in my opinion. They have to get close enough to that issue, just like a good parent wants to do that. And we should be challenging our politicians. We all make mistakes. And we all have to learn from our mistakes, and we have to be held accountable for our mistakes. And changes happen slowly and incrementally.
Yes.
But if we all have this vision of a better place for us, a better place for us, our country, a better way of living, then, and we all work towards that, we will make changes. We'll make them slowly, but we will ensure that things continue to get better for us, for our families, for our communities, for our province, and for our country.
ਸੋ ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਗੇਜ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਟਫ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੁੱਛਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ, ਨੈਵਰ ਹੈਜ਼ੀਟੇਟ ਟੂ ਆਸਕ ਟਫ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ। ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੀ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਹੋ, ਇੰਗੇਜ ਹੋ, ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਲੈਟਫਾਰਮ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਇੰਗੇਜ ਹੋ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਬਣ ਸਕਣ। And then we live as a community, and as Gordie said, make it a better place every day to live in the community that is our community. We are part of that. So thank you once again, Gordie, for your time, and you're very gracious and you have a lot of knowledge. We didn't even scratch the surface today because talking about your PhD and your research in this policy matters and citizenships and rights and responsibilities, there will be more opportunities that we will sit down and talk to our viewers. Viewers, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ. Thank you very much. Tune in always, and ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੰਬਰ ਹੈ ਈਮੇਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ, ਆਪਦੀ ਫੀਡਬੈਕ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਦਿਆ ਕਰੋ। ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਟੈਲਸ ਚੈਨਲ 2020 ਤੇ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਆ, ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰੀ ਫੇਸਬੁੱਕ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਾਈਵ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਇਸ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਂਝਾ TV ਤੇ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਵੀ, ਤੇ ਆਪਦੀ ਫੀਡਬੈਕ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਦਿਆ ਕਰੋ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਬਣਾ ਸਕੀਏ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਹਰ ਹਫਤੇ CJ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਨੂੰ, ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਐਕਟਿਵਿਸਟ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਈਦਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਆਪਦੇ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਊ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਆ। ਫਾਈਨਲ ਵਰਡ।
Well, I just think that so often when we look at things, we pick out the negative things, and it's easy to become negative in terms of looking at that. And that's often the temptation. But we have to look at the positive things and not get focused on the negative, and be able to focus on those positive things and make those positive changes, because we can do that, and we can collectively make a difference pulling together in a positive way. Don't get stuck in that negative.
Very nicely said. So ਗੋਡੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੌਪਿਕਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਇਹ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਮਾੜੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ। ਇਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵਲੀ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚੋਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਸ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ। ਇਹ ਕੋਈ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਡਿਪਰੈਸਿੰਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਕੋਈ ਨੈਗੇਟਿਵਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਣਾ। ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰੀਏ ਤੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਸ ਬਣਾਈਏ। That's what Gordie's final point is. Just make it a positive experience, and that's where we will start making a difference.
I'll make little differences.
Thank you. Tanwad. Have a wonderful, healthy, happy weekend. And next Thursday, I will be back on 7 o'clock. ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਵਾਂਗੇ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਰੱਬ ਰੱਖ।